This is Dr. E and for today ay pag-uusapan naman natin kung paano tayo operate or mag-solve ng mga problems involving fractions. Isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit ang mga estudyante ay nahihirapan sa mathematics ay yung anxiety na na-experience nila kapag nakakita sila ng problems involving fractions. To be able to gain more confidence in mathematics, kailangan ma-master natin ang fraction operations at yan ang pag-uusapan natin ngayong araw na ito sa lesson natin on fractions. So matututunan natin mag-simplify, multiply, divide, add, and subtract fractions. And to be able to understand that, unahin muna natin syempre yung fundamentals na tinatawag dahil sa mathematics and in any skill, kailangan nating ma-master yung ating mga fundamentals. And to be able to be successful in calculus, trigonometry, geometry, or intermediate algebra, kinakailangan na alam natin kung paano tayo mag-operate ng mga numerical fractions tulad ng gagawin natin for today. At ang ating nakikita ngayon sa ating screen ay ang multiplication table, and as basic as it is, napakalaking bagay na master na natin ang ating multiplication table para mas maunawaan natin ang fractions, pati na rin ang algebra tulad ng gagawin natin today. So ang una natin kailangan matutunan ay yung mga tinatawag natin mga prime numbers, composite numbers, at mga squares. Kung alam natin ang mga ito at ma-memorize natin ang mga numbers na yan using our multiplication table, mas madali nating gagawa yung operations involving fractions sa araw na ito. So, ang mga prime numbers, ito yung mga numbers na kapag pinactor out ninyo ay meron lang isang pares. Yan ay yung kanyang number and 1. Tulad ng 2, 3, 5, 7, and 11. Lahat yan ay prime numbers dahil hindi na natin sila mag-break apart into several sets of factors. At ang factors lang ng mga yan ay 2 times 1, 3 times 1, 5 times 1, 7 times 1, and 11 times 1 at wala nang iba. Ang composite numbers naman, yan naman yung parang kabaligtaran ng prime numbers dahil dito meron tayong makukuhang 2 or more sets of factors ng ating mga numbers. At yan ay ang 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, and 12. Kung kukunin natin yung mga composite numbers between 0 and 12, 0 and 12 are included. So dito, makikita natin kung si 4 ang gagamitin nating example. Ang ating 4 ay pwede pa nating ma-factor out into 2 prime numbers, which is 2 times 2. At ito na ngayon yung ating set of factors kay 4. Pwede tayong mag 4 times 1. At pwede din tayong mag 2 times 2. At since meron tayong 2 sets of factors ng ating number 4, yan ang tinatawag natin or nakaklasify natin siya as composite number as opposed to 2, 3, 5, 7, and 11. So si 6, si 8, si 9, si 10, at si 12, yan ay ang mga composite numbers at ang goal natin ngayon ay makuha yung mga prime factors ng mga composite numbers na yan. At yung squares naman, yan naman yung tinatawag nating mga numbers na kapag kinuha natin yung kanyang square root, ay magbibigay sa atin ng integer or whole number. So, ang mga squares natin using our multiplication table, yan yung ating nasa diagonals. So, 2 times 2 is 4, 8 times 8 is 64. So, yung mga products ng mga yan yung tinatawag nating squares. So, between 0 and 144, ang ating set of squares would start with 1 all the way to 144. So, yan yung ating mga numbers na kailangan natin matutunan at lagi natin tandaan na ang number facts ay basic or fundamentals na kailangan nating matutunan para mas maunawaan natin ang language of mathematics. So, ang susunod nating skill, bago tayo tumungo sa mga fractions natin, para hindi naman tayo masyado ma-intimidate sa mga fractions, ay yung tinatawag nating prime factorization. So, ginamit na natin yung prime factorization na yan kay 4 at alam natin na ang mga prime factors ni 4 ay 2 and 2 at yung 2 ay prime numbers. So ito lang yung mga prime factors ng ating number 4. At kung kukunin naman natin ang prime factors ni 12, tulad ng tree diagram na ginawa natin, so kung meron tayong 12, ang unang factor na makukuha natin would be 6 times 2, at si 2 ay prime number na pero si 6 ay hindi pa, so pwede pa natin siyang i-break down into 2 times 3. So ngayon, na lahat na sila ay prime numbers, ang prime factors ni 12 would be 2, 2, 3. Which means, kapag kami multiply natin si 2 times 2 times 3, it will equal to 12 at alam natin na si 2, 2, and 3 are all prime numbers. Now, paano naman kung iba yung ating unang set of factors na pipiliin? Magkakaroon ba tayo ng kaibang prime factors ng 12? At ang sagot dyan, syempre, ay hindi. So, let's say, ang katabi natin or ang kaklase natin, ang kinuhang factor ni 12 ay 4 times 3 instead of 6 and 2, mapapansin niyo na si 3 ay prime number at si 4 ay hindi prime number. So if we break this apart, it will give us 2 and 2. So ngayon, meron na tayong prime numbers ni 12 mula kay 4 and 3, which is 2, 2, and 3, which is pretty much the same as yung ating first set of factors. So it doesn't really matter kung ano yung ating unang factors na pinili sa ating number para makuha ang kanilang mga prime factors, as long as alam natin ang ating multiplication table at alam natin ang mga set of factors ng mga composite numbers natin, we're all going to get the same set of prime factors ng ating mga numbers. So si 12, ang prime factors niya would be 2, 2, and 3. At kung si 29 naman ang pag-uusapan natin, mag-isip kayo ng ating factor kay 29. At alam natin na sa 29, ang kanyang factors lang would be 29 times 1 dahil ito ay isang prime number. So kapag sinimplify natin ang kanyang prime factors, it will just be 29 and 1. So ito yung ating prime factorization na tinatawag. And the reason why we did this is because kakailanganin natin yan sa skill sa pag-operate ng ating mga fractions. At uumpisahan natin yan kay simplifying fractions. So ano nga ba ang simplifying fractions? Yan yung pagkuha ng equivalent fraction ng ating 6 over 4 into its smaller form. So paano natin gagawin yan? Using prime factorization. So kung meron tayong 6 and 4, pwede nating i-modify si 6 and 4 in such a way na kukunin natin yung prime factors ni 6 at ni prime factors ni 4. Ang prime factors ni 6 ay 2 times 3 at ang prime factors ni 4 ay 2 times 2. At mapapansin natin kapag hiniwalay natin itong mga fraction na to, magkakaroon tayo ng 2 over 2 times 3 all over 2. At alam natin na si 2 all over 2 is equal to 1. So we're simply multiplying 1 and 3 over 2. At kapag nag-multiply tayo ng 1 to any number, no matter how big or small it is, will equal to the number itself. So si 6 over 4 ay equivalent kay 3 all over 2 dahil sa kanyang simplest form na tinatawag. So, yan yung kahalagahan ng prime factorization, and I'm sure marami tayong natutunan mula sa school, sa kaklase natin, sa nanay natin, sa teachers natin on how to simplify fractions. And what I'm trying to show you is a way on how to connect algebra at yung ating lesson on fractions tulad ng mga examples natin. Dahil ganito natin hihimay-himayin yung ating mga polynomials kapag pumunta na tayo sa algebra. Kaya yung method na pinapakita ko sa inyo using prime factorization will help you understand algebra better so that makonect natin yung skill na natututunan natin instead of mga shortcuts para mas maunawaan natin at naintindihan ng algebra. So si 6 over 4, we broke it down to 2, 3, and 2, 2. And we know that we can cancel out 2 and 2 dahil it will equal to 1. So 6 over 4 is also equal to 3 all over 2. So kung meron tayong 15 all over 25, si 15 and 25, using your mental math skill, kaya napakahalaga na memorize natin yung multiplication table natin. Dahil si 15, using mental math, we can break it apart into its prime factors. 15 is 3 times 5 and 25 is 5 times 5. So now that we have its prime factorization, we can now cancel out the common term, which will equal to 1, kaya ang matitira na lang sa atin is 3 all over 5. So ganyan tayo magsisimplify ng mga fractions para makonect natin ang skill na yan sa algebra. And again, marami tayong ways on how we can come up with answers, and the technique that I'm showing you ay yung technique na magiging technique nyo rin pagdating ng mga problems ninyo on rational expressions sa algebra. So si 18 and 20, alam natin na ang prime factors ni 18, ang first natin maiisip would probably 9 times 2. 9 is not a prime number, so we will break it apart into 3 and 3. So 18 is 3, 3, 2. At si 20, 4 times 5, 4 is 2, 2. 5 is prime. So meron na tayo ngayong mga prime factors. So tulad ng pinapakita ko sa inyo, napakahalaga ng mental math, especially prime factorization, para mas mapabilis yung pagkuha natin ng ating simplest form ni 18 over 20 using this technique, which is going to equal to 9 all over 10. Dahil makakancel natin si 2 and 2, at ang matitira na lang sa atin is 3 times 3 as a numerator at 2 times 5 sa denominator. So, i-multiply lang natin sila dahil si 9 over 10 ay hindi na natin masisimplify at yan na yung simplest form ng ating fraction. So yan ang pag-simplify natin ng fraction using prime factorization, at gagamitin natin ang skill na yan sa other 4 operations na meron tayo, at uunahin natin yung operations na mayroong mas straightforward na rule to build up the degree of difficulty para hindi naman tayo masyadong ma-stress at matakot sa pag-combine ng ating mga fractions. Unahin natin ang operation of multiplication. So sa pag-multiply, tandaan lang natin na ang rules sa multiplication of fraction is pretty simple. Kung meron tayong A all over B multiplied to C all over D, napakadali ng rule dahil i-multiply lang natin si A times C o yung numerator at si B times D o yung numerator. So meron tayong AC all over BD. At yung product nila, ito na yung magiging fraction natin, and if we can simplify it, we may do so. So what we're going to do here sa ating fraction of 15 all over 25 times 5 over 3, we know that we're going to combine those two by multiplication, but instead of multiplying 15 times 5 and 25 times 3, which will give us a bigger number, bakit hindi natin himay-himayin yung ating fraction right away para mas madali ang pag-multiply natin at hindi na tayo makakita ng sobrang laking numbers that we need to simplify after natin siya i-multiply. So what we're going to do, instead of multiplying 15 times 5 and 2 times 25 times 3, gawin natin yung prime factors ni 15, at ang prime factors ni 15 ay 5 times 3, at ang prime factors ni 25 ay 5 times 5. I-multiply natin siya kay 5 over 3, and both of them are prime numbers, so if we multiply them, we're simply multiplying the numerator, 5 times 3 times 5, all over 5 times 5 times 3, at mapapansin natin na we can cancel out the common term, at ang natira na lang sa atin ay 1 dahil sa na-cancel natin lahat ng ating numerical value sa 15 over 25 times 5 over 3. So that means sa ating problem number 1, ang product niyan will equal to 1. Dahil sa prime factorization, we cancel out the 3's, the 5's, and the 5's. So 1 ang magiging sagot natin. Now, lagi bang 1 ang magiging sagot natin kapag ginamit natin yung prime factorization? Let's try it with the second example. So meron tayong 21 over 6 times 3 all over 7 using prime factorization. Si 21 all over 6 will equal to 21 is 7 times 3, at si 6 ay 2 times 3, at si 3 times 7 naman, or 3 and 7 will just be 3 over 7 dahil sila ay mga prime numbers. So kapag minultiply natin itong dalawang ito, 21 times 6 and 3 over 7 will have 7 times 3 times 3 all over 2 times 3 times 7. So yung mga numerator natin, nandito lahat sila sa taas, at yung mga denominator natin, nandito sa baba. And by canceling out the common terms, 3 and 3, 7 and 7, it will give us 3 all over 2. So ito na ngayon, yung product ng 21 all over 6 multiplied by 3 all over 7 is equal to 3 all over 2 using this technique that we have learned from prime factorization. So by breaking your numbers into its prime factors, we'll be able to cancel out the common terms, and whatever is left will be the simplest form of your fraction, which is in this case 3 all over 2. At ang susunod natin example, meron tayong 2 times 5 or 2 over 5 times 25 all over 22. So ang mga prime numbers natin dyan ay 2 and 5, pero si 25 and 22, pwede pa natin siyang i-break down into its prime factors. So let's multiply 2 all over 5 by 25 all over 22. And to do that, we will break 25 and 22 apart into its prime numbers. Si 25 ay 5 times 5 at si 22 ay 22 times or 2 times 11. 2 times 11 is equal to 22. Kaya napakahalaga na alam natin ang ating multiplication table so we can do mental math faster. So, meron tayo ngayong 2 all over 5 multiplied by 5 times 5 all over 2 times 11. And by doing so, pwede na tayo mag-cancel ang mga common term. Tanggalin natin si 2 and 2, si 5 and 5, at ang matitira na lang is 5 over 11. So, ang product ni 2 over 5 and 25 over 22 is equal to 5 over 11 using our technique. So, this is how we use our prior knowledge and connecting it to a new skill tulad ng ginagawa natin sa ngayon. At kung meron tayong 3 over 5 times 7 over 2, 3, 5, 7, and 2 are all prime numbers. So that means we cannot break them apart anymore. So all we need to do now is to use the multiplication rule, which is to multiply the top and multiply the bottom. And hindi na natin siya isi-simplify dahil yung product niya, which is 21 over 10, will be its simplest form dahil wala tayong nakuhang common terms na factor ng fractions na minultiply natin. So again, yung operate ng fractions, we have several ways or techniques on how to do this, but what I'm showing you is how you can use this particular skill, basic skill, pagdating ninyo sa algebra and calculus na makakatulong para mas magkaroon kayo ng confidence in mathematics. Now, division of fractions, kung meron tayong A over B divided by C over D, all we need to do is to apply another step. At ang step na yan ay to get the reciprocal of the second fraction and then we proceed to multiplication. So copy A over B multiplied with the reciprocal of C over D, which is D all over C. Now that we are multiplying it, so ang quotient ng A over B and C over D will equal to A times D all over B times C. So magdadagdag lang tayo ng isa pang step at makukuha na natin yung quotient ng ating dalawa or higit pang mga fractions. So let's start with 5 over 3 divided by 25 over 6. So tulad nung ginawa natin kanina, 5 divided by 3 or 5 over 3 divided by 25 all over 6. First step is to copy and reciprocate the second fraction and then proceed to multiplication. And now that we are multiplying, we know that we can simplify our numerical value through its prime factors. Si 5, goods na yan. Si 3, goods na rin yan. Pero si 6 and 25, pwede pa natin siyang i-break down into 2 times 3 and 5 times 5. And now that we have the prime factors of 6 and 25, by canceling the common terms, meron tayong 5 and 5, 3 and 3. So, 5 over 3 divided by 25 over 6 is equal to 2 all over 5. At yan yung quotient natin for this example using the division rule in fraction. And now, we're able to divide the two fractions using prime factorization na mas magiging madali kung na-master na natin ang ating multiplication table. So let's test our mental math skill and divide 6 over 4 and 9 over 14. So by prime factorization ulit, si 6 at si 4 divided by 9 and 14, copy, reciprocate, and then multiply. We know that 6 is not yet factored. We can factor 6 because it's a composite number. Si 4, si 14, at si 9. And now, by canceling out the common term, dahil nagmumultiply lang naman tayo, makancel natin si 2, makancel natin si 3, at makancel natin si 2, ang matitira na lang ay si 7 and 3. So ang quotient ni 6 over 4 divided by 9 over 14 should be 7 over 3 using this technique. At yan yung pag-divide natin ng ating mga numerical values using prime factorization. Kaya kung meron tayong 12 over 25 divided by 30 over 10, reciprocate 30 and 10, so we'll have 12 times 5 or 12 over 25 times 10 over 3, and by breaking them apart, si 12, meron tayong 4 and 3, 2, 2, 3, si 25 ay 5, 5, si 10 ay 5, 2, at si 30, 30 is 15 and 2, 15 is 3 and 5, so meron tayong 3, 5, and 2. So ganyan, kaganda, kung meron tayong skill sa multiplication table at alam nating i-break apart yung ating mga prime factorization mentally. So now that we have this, we can cancel out the common term at ang matitira na lang dyan ay si 4 over 25 at yan yung magiging quotient natin ng dalawang fraction na yan. At kung meron tayong 2 over 7 divided by 3 over 5, copy the first fraction, reciprocate the second fraction, and proceed to multiplication. Check kung pwede natin siyang i-factor at alam natin na si 2, 7, 5, and 3 are all prime numbers. So all we need to do is to multiply them out. So we have 10 all over 21. At yan yung pag-multiply, divide, and simplify ng fraction using prime factorization. And ngayon, mag-add at mag-subtract naman tayo. So sa addition at subtraction, ang rule nila ay medyo mas madami kaysa sa multiplication and division, kaya inuna natin yung dalawang operations na yan. Pero madali na natin maiintindihan yung formula ng addition and subtraction dahil gamay na natin yung ating mga skill on simplifying and using prime factors to operate on fractions. So ang ating basic formula ng addition and subtraction of fractions with different denominators, kung meron tayong a over b plus c over d, all we need to do is to multiply a and d and multiply c and b and then add them up all over the product of b and d. At ganun din naman yung subtraction rule of different denominators. Dahil kung meron tayong a over b minus c over d, so product ni AD, product ni CB, then subtract them, yun yung ating numerator, all over the product of B and D. Now, paano natin gagamitin itong rule na yan at bakit tayo nag-umpisa sa fractions na merong different denominators? Dahil mas madali kung uunahin natin yung mga mas mahihirap na example para mas maging madali yung mga susunod nating operations. So, si 2 over 3 minus 1 over 5 using yung ating formula. So, ang gagawin lang natin, marami silang tawag dito. Meron sinasabing butterfly method, 2 all over 3 minus 1 all over 5. So, what you need to do is to multiply 2 and 5, 2 times 5, minus the product of 3 and 1, 3 times 1, all over the product of 3 times 5. So, si 2 times 5 ay 10, minus 3 times 1 which is 3, at si 3 times 5 ay 15. At ngayon, pwede na natin i-combine si numerator to simplify it, and 10 minus 3 is equal to 7, all over 15. Now that we have 7 over 15, both of them are prime, so that means ito na yung ating difference ng dalawang fraction, and it's also in its simplest form dahil parehas na prime number yung sagot natin. So yan yung butterfly method, and the reason why they say it's butterfly method is because we multiply this diagonal, then we multiply this diagonal, and then we multiply the denominator. At yan yung ating rule sa pag-add and subtract ng ating fractions with different denominators. So 7 over 15 ang sagot natin do sa ating first example. Kaya kung meron tayong 5 over 3 plus 4 over 6, using the same technique, we'll be able to solve this problem. So notice na nagbago lang yung ating operation pero yung rule natin will stay the same. So 5 all over 3 added to 4 all over 6. Magkaiba yung denominator. So ang gagawin natin is yung formula natin, 5 times 6 plus 4 times 3. Wag natin ilagay 12. 4 times 3 para makita natin yung ating steps. And then 3 times 6. And now that we use the formula, let's simplify 5 and 6. 5 times 6 is 30. 4 times 3 is equal to 12. All over 3 times 6, which is 18. And by simplifying it, 30 plus 12 is equal to 42. All over 18, at alam natin na si 42 at si 18 ay pwede pa nating i-simplify. And to simplify this, we're going to use our prime factorization. Ang factors ni 42 ay equal to 7 times 6. So 7 times 6 is 7 times 3 and 3. At si 18 naman ay 2 times 9 at si 9 ay 3 times 3. So by simplifying this, ang ating sum ng dalawang fraction na to should equal to 7 all over 2. So ito yung tinatawag nating improper fraction dahil pwede natin itong i-change into its mixed number form. So tama ba yung sagot natin na 7 over 2? Let's check it out. So we use the butterfly method or the formula for addition of fractions with different denominator. And now we simplify them and combine 30 and 12, which gives us 42 and 18. And we know that 42 and 18 can be simplified into 7 over 2 dahil ang prime factors ni 42 ay 7 and 6 or 7 and 3 and 2. At balikan natin yung ating operation. 7, 3, 3 ang ginawa ko. 7, 3, and 2. Buti na lang, inulit natin to. So 7, 3, and 2. At si 18 ay 2 and 9. So 2 times 3 and 3. So ang makakancel lang pala natin dito is si 7 and 3. Si 3 and 3. At ang magiging product natin should be 7 times 2 all over 2 times 3. And in this case, pwede natin i-cancel out ito. At ang matitira ay 7 over 3. So ang sagot natin is 7 over 3 and not 7 over 2. So again, careful on how you simplify or you write your prime factorization tulad na nangyari sa akin. So mistakes are bound to happen, but if we're going to review our work, pwede natin tama yung mga pagkakamali natin tulad no nangyari kanina. So ang sagot natin kay problem number 2, si 42 over 18 is equal to 7 over 3 at hindi 7 over 2. So sorry naman sa mga nagtaka agad bakit yun ang sagot natin kanina. Dahil mali yung una nating operations or yung pag-factor natin kay 42, which is 7 times 6 and 6 is 3 and 2 and not 3 times 3. Alright, so paano naman si 9 over 21 plus 2 over 21? How are we going to add them up? Are we going to use the butterfly technique? Pero syempre, since meron tayong common denominator, hindi na natin kailangan gawin yan dahil si 9 all over 12 plus 2 all over, 21, not 12. They have the same denominator, so ang rule natin dyan is to copy the denominator and then add our numerator. So 9 plus 2 is equal to 11. So ang sagot natin ngayon dyan ay 11 over 21 at alam natin na si 11 ay prime number. So hindi na natin masisimplify yung ating fraction at yan na yung magiging sagot natin for problem or for this particular pair of fractions. 11 over 21. So again, kapag parehas ang denominator natin, Ang kailangan lang natin gawin is to use the basic rule and see if you can simplify your fractions afterwards. Kaya, kung meron tayong mga addition and subtraction of fractions with different denominators, tulad nga na nabanggit ko, marami tayong methods or ways kung paano natin to gagawin. Pero, yung pinapakita ko sa inyong technique ay yung technique na magagamit ninyo pag nag-algebra na tayo at nag-calculus dahil ganito tayo, mag-solve ng mga rational expressions pagdating sa algebra. At paano naman kung meron tayong mga special cases tulad ng 1, 2, and 3? Gagamitin pa rin ba natin yung ating mga rules? Yes, we can certainly do that, but with the mastery that you have on your number sense and your number facts, may mga techniques tayo na pwedeng gamitin para mas mapadali yung pag-add at pag-operate ng problems 1, 2, and 3. At since special case ito, kung meron tayong 2 over 7 plus 1 over 4, ang gagawin natin dito, mapapansin natin, so mathematics is all about pattern recognition. So makikita natin na sa 2 over 7, pag inad natin ko ay 1 over 14, alam natin without using the butterfly technique, pwede nating gawing similar yung ating denominator by multiplying it with 7 all over 7. And why are we going to do this? I mean, not 7 over 7, but 2 all over 2. And why are we going to do this? Because pag minultiply natin si 2 by 7, magiging common na siya kay 14. And we know that 2 all over 2 is equal to 1. So basically, we're multiplying 2 over 7 by 1, pero sa ibang anyo. At dahil iba yung anyo ng 1 natin, mag-iiba din yung anyo ng ating fraction at magkakaparehas na siya ng fraction natin kay 1 over 14 because 2 times 2 and 2 times 7 will give us 4 all over 14. So pag inad natin siya, mapapansin natin na parehas na yung denominator. So without using the butterfly method, 4 plus 1 is equal to 5. So ang sagot natin dyan ay 5 over 14 for problem number 1 using this technique. At yung mga technique na yan, magagamit natin yan kapag na-master na natin yung ating multiplication table at makapag-recognize na tayo ng pattern na mas magiging madali para sa atin sa pag-solve ng problem tulad ni number 2, si 2 over 7 plus 1. At alam natin na si 1, ang kanyang denominator ay 1, so magkaiba sila ng denominator, pero kung i-multiply natin siya by 7 all over 7, si 2 over 7 plus 1 will now be changed to 7 over 7, and by doing so, magkaparehas na yung denominator, so i-add na lang natin ito 2, 7, and we'll have 9 all over 7 as our sum. So again, it's all about technique and recognizing pattern. At kung meron tayong problem number 3, kung meron tayong tinatawag na complex fractions, to be able to simplify complex fractions, alam natin na ang fraction is also a form of division. So what we can do is to modify yung ating problem into 3 all over 4 divided by 2 all over 5 ay parehas lang ng 3 all over 4 divided by 2 all over 5. At ngayon na mas familiar tayo sa notation na nakikita natin, alam natin na ang operation ng fraction na yan, we copy the first fraction, reciprocate the second fraction, and then proceed to multiplication. Now, we can simplify this by prime factorization at si 3, 4, 5, and 2. Isimplify lang natin si 4 into 2 and 2. And makikita natin na wala rin naman tayong makakancel. So, even though na prime or na simplify natin si 4, ang ending natin will be to multiply 3 and 5 and 4 and 2 pa rin. Pero, this time, mas confident na tayo na ang sagot natin ay simplest form. So, ang 3 times 5 is equal to 15 at si 4 times 2 is equal to 8. At ito na ngayon yung ating fraction for problem number 3. So again, Pattern recognition is key when it comes to working with math problems at kung paano naman tayo mag-convert ng mixed fraction to improper, improper to mixed, decimal to fraction, fraction to decimal. May video tayo dyan sa ating mga lessons sa ating YouTube channel that you can practice on. At yan, yung mga paraan ng pag-simplify, add, multiply, subtract, and divide ng ating mga fraction using our very powerful skill, which is yung prime factorization, para mas maunawaan natin yung connection ng basic math kay algebra. And going further, by mastering the operation of fraction, we'll be able to answer this problem on intermediate algebra, this problem on trigonometry, and this problem on calculus, simply because we're able to do prime factorizations and operation on fractions. So again, fundamental is key when it comes to working with math problems. Kaya sa mga students natin na medyo nagkakaroon ng anxiety when it comes to mathematics, just remember that fundamental is key. We need to master yung mga basic math skill natin, especially yung multiplication table at prime factorization, and being able to confidently work with our multiplication table will ultimately help us para magkaroon tayo ng confidence sa mathematics. This is Dr. E, and see you again next time. Bye!